Good evening, everybody. Tonight, it is Monday, the 12th of August, for episode 144 of So What's Been Happening. This sort of commences and starts off season number 8 for us. Was a little podcast we put together during COVID to reach out to some friends and musicians as it all went pear-shaped for everyone. The world's a little different now. There's still challenges, don't get me wrong. Gigs are hard to get full. There's so many venues around, but money's a little tight. But I urge you this weekend, Saturday afternoon, the most important time of the day. You're going to head off in the afternoon. You're going to have lunch at the Retreat Hotel in Brunswick. You're going to have a nice counter meal, which is obviously putting some money over the bar. And then you're going to head into a free gig. I mean, how awesome is this? This doesn't happen very often. Well, in fact, it does in Melbourne. We're very lucky. We're very blessed to have free gigs in amongst this. But what I do urge you to do is come into the band room and see a beautiful lady named Wren Bellette. I hope I get that pronunciation correctly. And it's a really exciting time. It's an album launch. Everyone loves an album launch. This one's been a little while in the making, but I can't wait to hear this one in its entirety, hopefully. So Wren Bellette and the Restless Few. What a great accompanying band name. Wren is no newcomer to music, that's for sure, but she's a newcomer as far as putting out a solo album. So this is really exciting. Debut albums are always exciting to have a chat about. And tonight we're blessed to be able to spend a little bit of time with Wren Bellette and also accompanied by Hugh Belfrage. I hope I get that pronunciation right too, Hugh. So here we go. We're lucky enough to bring the guys up, and we're going to just say a quick hello, and then we're going to go in, and lucky enough, they're going to play a first track for us live. Welcome. How are you, Wren?
Hi, Aaron. I'm very well. How are you?
Great to meet both of you. And you always say yourself, Hugh. Thanks for joining me on
Great to be here.
44 of So What's Been Happening. Where do we find you tonight in the world?
You find me in Pascoe Vale in Melbourne in my lounge room. If you're hearing scratches, that's the sound of my dogs upstairs wanting to come downstairs. So we'll just ignore that. Just hanging out in our lounge room, aren't we, here?
Yep, sure.
Beautiful. Well, I mean, what better night to spend a Monday night sitting down. Thanks for inviting me into your little lounge room and being able to have a chat. It's great to meet you guys and to be blessed to hear a slightly different instrument as well that we would normally have on our show. So we'll let you guys open up with your first song, and then we'll have a bit more of a chat.
Lovely. Thank you. This song is called Come Back Home. It's on the upcoming album, This Love Will Die. And as long as Hugh doesn't impale me with his bow, we should be fine. How's this going again? You or me? You, when you're ready.
A little bit like this.
Yeah. believe it, that you left me for her, and you won't admit it, that you left me for her. It's one thing to talk about it, and another to see it through. That you went and committed, well, that's all on you. But I don't believe it. It's been near a year, and you left me waiting for you come back home. Well, I'm dreaming of you. I'm dreaming you're by my side. When I wake, I remember that it's only you in my mind. But I don't believe it. It's been near a year, and you left me waiting for you come back home. I've been doing all the right things, keep my head held high. I've been doing all the right things, keep my head held high. I've been doing all the right things, keep my head held high. I've been doing all the right things, keep my head held high. But I don't believe you left me for you come back home. For you come back home.
Yeah, that was beautiful. What a start.
Yeah.
I just realised that my phone is not on silent, and I'm waiting for a child to call me. And so, give me 2 seconds.
No problem. No problem. While you're doing that, geez, there's some beautiful lines in amongst that little story there.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and always love harmonies in any form, 2-part, 3-part, whatever you've got at the time. A little bit of magic chemistry between you two in amongst this. So thank you very much for doing that.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of time we get to have a guitar or maybe even 2 guitars, but very blessed to have the beautiful instrument that is the cello in amongst this. Thank you very much, Hugh. Hugh, I'm going to just kick off with you actually. Cello, has it always been your go-to? How did you kind of...
Totally. Since I was about 10.
Right.
And mostly classical. So playing with Wren has been like learning how to loosen up and slide around a bit and, not so much vibrato and classical sound, but kind of a more, Americana sound. So
it sits in there beautifully.
It's a great challenge. Yeah. Just to give that loose sound. Yeah.
Do you find for you in particular this time, is it a little bit more of a less is more type scenario, or you've just got to fit and feel that groove?
Totally. I started out, playing the whole song because I love harmony too. But you got to pare it back so that you get more impact from the instrument, so the parts come out and less is more.
Well, definitely has its a place obviously in amongst this band, a big band, this one too. Wren, you don't do things by halves in amongst this one.
I know. I think I'm musically greedy. Like I honestly think I am. I'm constantly hearing. I'm like, oh, wouldn't that be amazing if we had that? And wouldn't it be incredible if it had that? And once you hear something, you can't unhear it. Once you know that you need cello, you just can never go back. So it's like that with everything. And we've put together a 6-piece and we're sounding pretty good. So excited by that.
Very good. And does it become a 6-piece, or is it a full 6-piece in amongst the album, or is it a special?
The album is probably like 100-piece.
Whatever, some more stuff you could fit in. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the album, I went in there intending to write a relatively simple album, and I didn't have intentions to do what it ended up becoming. But the studio is the most incredible experience, and I just love it. Like I think I would just happily be a producer if I could do nothing else. And when you're in a situation where you can there's instruments everywhere and there's musicians and creativity everywhere, and you hear something and you just want to add to it. Like how can you say to a song, hey, this song really needs cello, or it really needs violin, or we need a sax here, or we need a trumpet here. Like once you hear those lines, you just can't not do it. So we ended up recording. It's a pretty epic album. Like it's there's I don't know how many people are on it, between 20 and 30.
Awesome.
Yeah, but I'm really happy that it took forever to do, but I'm really happy that we got all the way through and it sounds the way that it does now. Yeah.
What a beautiful way to bring a solo debut album for Wren Bellette into the world. In with a bang, so to speak. So big challenge. The big challenge is what do you follow up with? But you're no stranger to music. You've been around for quite some time in amongst the music world with the Restless Few. And I mean that with all due respect. Please just tell me a little bit about the band before and how we ended up here as Wren Bellette merging into the world that is solo album.
Well, I've been I'm 55 this year, and I was writing songs as a kid and just making silly songs. Never took anything seriously, and I used to sing as a kid and just loved doing it, but never took any of it seriously. And roughly when I was turning 40, my husband at the time was a musician, and he was putting a band together, and he pretty much just said, look, if you want to, you can sing backing vocals. And I was like, oh my God, terrified. And so I did. I started singing backing vocals in this band called the Heggarties, and we were an Americana band based in South Australia. I was doing backing vocals for a while, and then at that point we were just a covers band. So we were doing heaps of Ryan Adams and Lucinda Williams and, lots of Americana sort of stuff. but we'd been doing it for about 2 or 3 years. And in that time frame, he eventually was like, hey, do you want to sing this song? You can sing, you know. So coming from being backing vocals to actually doing lead vocals, which scared the hell out of me. I didn't play an instrument. So I was basically just the wife of singing along and getting away with it pretty much. But after a while, we were doing quite well, but we were still just a covers band. So people would say to us, are you going to do an album or are you going to put out your own music? And we'd be like, well, we're a covers band, so obviously not. And I think I was waiting for everybody else in the band to start writing songs because there were songwriters in the band. And my husband was a really good songwriter, but it just kind of wasn't sort of happening. And I was getting frustrated with the whole experience. I had a couple of months off work and I decided to just have a stab at writing a country song. So as a kid, I used to drive around, like Mum would drive us around their old Kingswood, you know, out the back with no seat belts. And my sister and I, because there was no stereo or cassette or anything, we would just make up songs all the time. And so at that point in my life, I was driving like a 40-minute drive to work and back. And I just coincidentally had no stereo in my car. So I thought, that's it. I'm going to write a song. So on the way every day to work and back, I would just start singing a song. And short story, came up with a song called Alice and went to my husband and said, I think it's a song. And he was like, yep. He grabbed the guitar and starts putting it together. And he goes, that's your chorus. No, that's not a bridge. That's your chorus. That's your verse. And we just started playing around with it. I've never been so nervous in my life. Like, it was the most terrifying experience. And that song is Alice, and it ended up being on our first EP, which was really, really cool. And I think that once the floodgates had opened, I just didn't know how to stop. And I was just more and more writing. And I had a lot of support from the band, which was awesome. And they gave me a lot of room to, you know, I learned a lot from the other writers in the band. So eventually we ended up becoming an all originals band. So that was actually really cool, put out our own album. And in that stage, I ended up basically becoming the main songwriter. And because I'm writing the songs about my experiences, it seemed appropriate that I was the one that was singing it. So I ended up becoming almost the lead vocalist because most of these songs were mine. Which was all really, really good. We did well. We went to the Americana Music Festival a couple of times. We went to Tamworth and put out an album, and things were going really great. And then the marriage failed. Right. Spectacular disaster.
Damn, don't you hate that?
Yeah. And I was like, really? And then it became a thing of, well, what are we going to do with the band and what's going to happen next? And I really did not know what the plan was. But I just knew that I was finished with that journey and needed to sort of start my own. And my drummer at the time, Paul Angus, who is on the album, basically just messaged me one night and said, I want to do whatever you're doing. And I want to get a band together for you. I know everybody. I'll make a band happen. And we'll do your stuff. And I was kind of taken back by the whole thing. But within a matter of about a week, I had a band. And then we had an album that we were going to celebrate the Heggarties 10-year anniversary on a particular date at this place called the Wheat Sheaf in Adelaide. And we were breaking up in May. The band was finishing. The Heggarties were finishing up in May because I was leaving that band. And I just able to book the next gig ahead of me. So the one in the Wheat Sheaf, I took that gig as to launch my own band. So within 6 months of the Heggarties leaving, I launched my own band. And my goal with that band was to write all new material for it. And I wanted it to be closer to what I was writing at the time. Because the Heggarties became a bit of a fun time Americana band. And I really wasn't writing that sort of stuff anymore. So that's basically got started with The Restless Few, and it's just been barreling ahead for forever.
Sounds like it's a very fitting accompanying band, The Restless Few, in amongst all this. It's very. You don't sound like the person that sits and rests for too long, Wren. You always sound like a very busy woman with plenty on and now plenty to give in relation to a solo album.
Thank you very, very much. It is really exciting. It's funny that your podcast started because of COVID, and that was your response to it, because that's exactly what this album was. So for me, it was the same deal. Like the band, we were hitting COVID in Adelaide, and I was like, well, now's a good opportunity to write an album. And so that was my COVID project.
Yeah, well, it goes to show that some good things did come out of that experience for so many people. And you came across the from Adelaide across to Melbourne, but we'll talk about that one in a minute. We're going to have another song from you guys, and then talk a bit more.
Right. This one is called Woman. This is the opening track on the album, and we'll try not to sing too loudly. Right, third fret. Let just make sure I got that right. All good? Mm-hmm. 2. Woman, I see you. Woman, I see right through you, and all the damage you do. Oh, woman, I see you. Saw our loving and wanted all that we had. Say it's okay, he was tortured and sad. Lying in your arms, haven't got a clue. But we both know, took him cause he wanted to. Woman, I see you. Woman, I see right through you, and all damage you do. Oh, man, talk is cheap, but don't amount too much these days. Can talk yourself up in so many different ways. Sell yourself as the beacon of truth and light. But the things you do, how do you sleep at night? Woman, I see you. Woman, I see right damage you do. Oh. woman, I see you looking at you, oh woman, I
Beautiful. What a finish. What a finish. Very interesting, that one. Bit of power in that one too. Let's talk about the world of deception.
Perception. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Powerful song. What's the story behind that one, Wren?
I think it's fairly apparent.
It is. It is.
Yeah. It's just like, I think it's just the I don't know. It's a bit of a tricky one actually, because being a raging feminist, it's not something I wanted to spend a lot of time downing on another person in this scenario. But it is what it is, and I think the song, I felt like the time when I wrote the song, I needed to talk about it. So pretty much what it's about.
Yeah, there's like for me when I listen to it, it's also can be very much about a song of having kind of two people and sometimes not being true to yourself, and having this thought process that you're lying to yourself by not pushing something out or being in a different world. It's a very interesting track, but it comes across nice and powerfully, and Hugh, I must thank him for
isn't he gorgeous?
lead breaks on the cello there, beautifully done. Tell us a little bit about early inspirations for you. You mentioned singing in the car, making up songs. Where did the inspiration for song come from for you? Who were you listening to as a kid in your early days?
Yeah, my kids had it when I say this, but I absolutely was a hippie kid. So I grew up, my mum was quite young when she had us, and we lived in the Cross in the 60s. So it was very much, the hippie movement. Back then, she moved us to India for a large period of our early youth, and I was living in communes, and and all the time listening to Bob Dylan and listening to Joan Baez, and very much folk. It was all very, very folk heavy. Donovan, and I loved all of that, and that's pretty much what we used to listen to, because particularly when you're living overseas, back then, like in the early 70s, I only ever heard the music that my mother played, because I was living in India, so there was no radio that was giving me updated hits that were happening in Australia. So all I ever heard was basically folk music. So it's very much part of who I am now. And then we moved over here, and of course just absolutely love ABBA and all of the usual, but it hasn't, the folk music to me feels very much part of my being. It's sort of that stuff just feels like it's basically who I am. It's the sound of me, I suppose. And even though I'm not so much writing folk music these days, I'm writing Americana, but I feel like Americana is the real, it just sits perfectly, that sort of 70s, Neil Young, Linda Ronstadt, Emmylou Harris, all of those guys, it was just such a era back then. And that was my early childhood, and that's kind of what I grew. And that stuff, when I hear that, it really sounds. It's the stuff that actually moves me. Whereas I listen to lots of other music, and I love lots of other music, and I love pop, and I love lots of different stuff. But at the heart of it, the stuff that really feels true and real and authentic to me is this kind of genre.
Yeah, it's an outpouring of story and a very emotive story. So was that period that sparked your story writing and songwriting? Did you know at the time that it was kind of would head towards, obviously if you were singing, but would it come towards songwriting, or was it always just maybe putting your thoughts down on paper as such?
I honestly had no idea. Like I used to write silly songs, like muck around songs, and just be silly in that regard. But I never actually took it seriously. I didn't know I had it in me, and it really wasn't until I was in a band and had the opportunity to start writing songs, and I honestly thought it would be something I'd have a go at. And, like knitting, where I start it and go, oh yeah, okay, this is not for me. So I really had no understanding of what was going to happen next, that it was going to take over pretty much the rest of my creative being for forever, I would imagine, going forward.
Yeah. And you talked about obviously starting and coming into a band as the backup singer, so to speak.
Yeah.
When did the guitar kind of come into your world?
Yeah, the guitar. Actually, two things. So in answer to the question, when I launched this Wren The Restless Few, I decided I was going to play guitar. But when I've been to Americana Festival twice, and the second time I went, I remember just thinking, I really need to learn how to play guitar because it restricts my songwriting. And so I've picked up guitar. I don't think I'm that great at it. We do a lot of sound, like what's the word? Workarounds, so I don't have to play the tricky chords.
Sure.
But I do really love it, actually. So I think my guitar is quite beautiful. So I'm happy with that. But I've picked it up probably about maybe 3 years ago.
Yep. Does that have any influence now in your songwriting?
Yeah.
What you hear?
Those songs I wrote on the guitar. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's that process for you now? Has that changed over time now to how your current songwriting is? Like you mentioned, the guitar now forms a bit of a flavor. So I did hear one interview with you not long ago, and it was along the lines of you hearing and singing that song and the words through.
Yeah,
first for you.
It hasn't changed. I think I don't start the song on guitar. I never do. So I'll be singing it, and then if I'm lucky, I'll be able to bring it home and go, okay, what am I potentially playing here? And then sometimes I can find the chords, and other times I can't. And then that's when the band really comes into play. They're really, really helpful. And sometimes I can't play it. So there are a couple of songs that I still can't play, and I'm getting better at it. But the two most recent songs I've written are actually, I couldn't even play them, and they weren't played. I didn't learn. I didn't come up with them on the guitar. They were very much still the traditional driving around Preston, singing Dexys, my latest, and a song I wrote when my dog died recently, and that was again just singing into my iPhone, really. So the message hasn't changed. It just means it means that when I bring a song to a band now, it's not just a complete mess and go, hey guys, I've got this thing, good luck. Now I can kind of give them something more to work with.
Sure. And the songs from this particular album, are they kind of all from one session, or in respective songwriting kind of era for you, or was they a bit of a collaboration over the years of songwriting that you've pulled from?
All of that, really. I didn't go into the studio intending to write an album. I went in the studio thinking I'd just do an EP. I had no idea how I was going to fund it. I was just like, look, let's just throw 3 songs out and see how they stick. So Woman was one of them, and then there's 2 others. So I applied for some grants, which I didn't get. So I was like, this album's completely funded by me, and I've done some hard jobs to make it work. So I think initially I thought I would go into the studio and just provide my best works, and I didn't want to really record none of the songs that are on this album are on the Heggarties album. I didn't want to record anything that was actually from the Heggarties, but I ended up bringing Lying to Myself in, which is a song I wrote for the Heggarties. And the reason why I brought it in, it was because it completely fits in this album. So about 2/3 of the way through recording this album, I did two things. I realized that I was writing a heartbreak album, even though that wasn't the intention. I really thought I was going to bring like the best of, but it ended up being, okay, I'm doing a heartbreak album. And I wasn't even sure if I wanted to do it, a heartbreak album. I wasn't even sure if I was ready to talk about this stuff to people because it's really personal. But it was kind of like, well, I just wouldn't have been truthful to what I was creating if I pretended that I wasn't doing what I was doing, which was I was recording a heartbreak album subconsciously. So when I realized that was actually the case, I was like, all right, I'm going to have to lean in and just embrace this thing. And so when I did that, I actually pulled out a song that I had written that didn't belong there. It was called One Man's Trash. It's actually kind of fun, but it didn't really fit in with the vibe of the album. One of my songs is called This Love Will Die, and I was looking for a title for the album. It was my daughter Riley who was like, Mum, This Love Will Die. It's perfect for it. And I'm like, oh my God, it is perfect for it. So once I had a title for it. But I think the thing I'm actually really probably the most proud of through this whole experience was that I gave myself the creative freedom to not decide before I went in the studio what songs I was going to put down. And I gave myself time to be able to write new works, and so that if they were good enough, they might make their way on the album. And that's what's happened. So there's two songs on the album. One's called Too Late Now, and then the final song called Road Less Travel, which was my most recent single I put out. I hadn't written either of those songs when I first went into the studio and started recording. And Road Less Traveled in particular, it's the final song on the album, and it's the song that finishes the album. It's a perfect song for the album, and it's like the album is a journey through heartbreak and through all the different emotions that you feel, anger and sadness and misery and resentment and all the things that you go through when you have an experience like mine. But I didn't want to end the album like that. And so knowing that I could choose how I was going to finish this story, because it's a story, I wrote Road Less Traveled. And that is a song about embracing new endeavors and choosing a different road and going, all right, I'm done with that one. I'm off here now. And I love that album. That song is so precious to me. I got my choir, a group in Adelaide I was with, and they're singing backing vocals with it. And, and the song fades away on this album. It doesn't end. And the song's fading away in the distance, but meanwhile, the momentum, the guitarist, Tom Kneebone, he's actually in the middle of a solo that just keeps playing as it's actually fading away. So that's probably the most precious moment for me in recording this album, was being able to, it's a song, it's a story, the album is a story, and being able to curate it and finishing it with a song like Road Less Traveled. So,
on behalf of everyone that will listen to this beautiful album over time, I want to thank you for being able to pour your emotions out on this one, crack that egg open and actually go there, because it is a deep place through the breakups of all sorts of things over time, losing people, all sorts of things. And we get to experience this beautiful moment. It's 4 years in the making, this beautiful album, and this will be an exciting gig to get to this Saturday afternoon. special guest Nathan Seeckts, who is incredible and worth
Yeah.
plenty of money alone just to get in amongst this gig. So please get along to the retreat. Saturday the 17th of August, Retreat Hotel in Brunswick. This is an important one that you get to. It's an exciting, and it's a celebration, let's face it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being able to launch yourself as a solo artist, is incredibly important. I think it's a massive step. So is there something else that, obviously voice is an incredible instrument in itself, and the songwriting nature of putting together albums. Picked up the guitar. Is there anything else you want to pick up or strive to or look at in the future as far as picking up and say, I would love to have or play that? Is there an instrument that you wish you had played?
A really good question. It's funny. I think so many musicians will just go this one, that one, this one, that one. But you know what? I would really love to do the blues harp.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, there's plenty of time.
Yeah. I think the reason why I haven't done it is because I need like 5 of them.
Sure.
I need to know which key is what and whatever.
That's the challenge.
I really Old Crow Medicine Show. If you've heard that band, the guy that plays blues harp on that, just the way he plays it, it's like harmonica. It just sounds exactly like my childhood. So I would love to be able to do that. And we don't have that in our band, so we could have a bit of blues harp. Actually, Muzz, our drummer, she actually plays blues harp, so that's cool. Yeah.
Right. Well, maybe she's the teacher. Just dobbed yourself in.
Exactly.
For some harp lessons, that'll be fantastic. Now let's talk about artwork on albums, because I always love when albums make it out into the world. So here's one we prepared earlier, and we've got the art. And it's fantastic that you've got a live, actual, physical album. How good does it feel?
Oh my God, it is quite amazing. That's it there. Sorry,
there it is. Look at that
reflection on it there, but isn't it lovely? Yeah, I know. I'm so excited by it. Just like everything in this album. So Serafina Martin is the artist that did this amazing print, and she was my mother's best friend. And she was actually the woman that went to India first in the 60s and said to my mum, hey, you're going to come and join us and hang out in this commune place in India, and got my mum to come over, and that's what actually got us to go over to India as kids. And she's a very well-known printmaker in Glebe, and she's been studying in France and all sorts of different places. And since doing the album, I had the album mastered and whatnot probably a year and a half ago, so we've just been waiting to finish off the bits and pieces. And I've tried to find something to put to visual, like the cover, the art. Like I've been trying to find the right piece, and it took me so long to find it, and I just never thought I would. And then one day, because of Facebook, Serafina puts up one of her recent pieces, and it's this. And I was just floored by it because it's so beautiful, and I feel like it's the physical, it's a drawing of the journey that I've been on. It's all about transformation and all the different elements in your journey.
Yep.
And then I was like, I don't know how lucky I'm going to be, but I contacted her and just asked her if she would let me use it. And she was so beautiful and of course did. Gave me permission to use it and whatnot. But also there's a print, so I bought a copy of it, and she sent me that. But when she sent it to me, it was rolled up, and I open it up, and it's this different picture. It's the same person, it's the same woman, the front, but there's a butterfly. But most of the picture of this print was this big butterfly. I'm like, oh, I love it. It's absolutely beautiful, but it's not the print that I was going to use. And then I realized that there was the print that I was going to use was under it, and she's actually gifted me the second part of this whole piece. I know. So the second part, I know, it's just so breathtaking, and it's so special because not only does it look beautiful and it's such a precious, it's an actual artwork, it's also it's so incredibly meaningful to me. And the fact that Serafina is part of this journey is kind of my mother's not with us anymore, but if she was, she'd be blown away.
I'm sure she would be very honoured in the choice you've made in amongst this. And isn't it amazing how sometimes, and it probably would never happen again, a second or third album, this kind of same story with this special moment. So it's beautiful that it comes off. And just amongst some other artwork that you've got in amongst, was this all from the same artist, or is
it's the same artist? And if you look, Aaron, it's actually the same artwork. It's just sections of it.
Right.
So if you see, it's actually the same piece. We've just taken, that was the cheeky little sneaky thing that we did.
Yeah,
so we took little bits of the actual artwork and then made them as individual singles, and then released the whole artwork for the whole album cover. So it's a little bit of a thing that we've been doing for this last year.
The old-fashioned little mosaic, hey, that forms the whole
little mosaic. I know. It was like, oh, this is such a great idea.
It's a great idea. And if you're lucky enough, you can buy all 4 parts or 5 parts of this to put the whole thing together. So very exciting. So yeah, absolutely. Saturday afternoon at the Retreat Hotel. There is no better place in Melbourne on a Saturday afternoon. Just tell us a little bit about coming over from Adelaide into Melbourne and what you've experienced different to the Adelaide scene as far as music and the vibe that is kind of Melbourne for you now.
Yeah, I left Adelaide. I moved to Melbourne not for music, which was interesting. I moved to Melbourne because my eldest sons, I've got 3 kids, and my middle son, Ned, is also a musician. He plays punk music in a band called Encierro here in Melbourne. He decided to move. He went from Adelaide. He's like, I'm moving to Melbourne. I just couldn't bear with the thought of one of my kids not being like here, under my wings. Sure. But on top of that, Adelaide was incredibly supportive. Like, I don't think I could have gotten the career that I have or the support that I've had if it wasn't for being in Adelaide, because they really, really did support me. But it became it was just starting to become very close. And when the marriage failed, it was well known within Adelaide music community what was going down, because we were a pretty bit of a public band for Adelaide, and we were a family band for Adelaide, and it just got very, very, very close. And then I get people coming to my gigs, and they'd be hearing these songs, which are obviously incredibly sad, and they'd be crying, and I'd be like, well, are they crying because they're relating to the song and it's affecting them? Or are they crying because they know the story and they're just sad for me? And it just got too messy. And I just felt like I just needed to go somewhere where, people are hearing the songs for what they are, and they don't know all the backstory. And even if they do, they're not connected with it the way other people have been. So I think that was kind of it. I've been gigging in the same places, and I just felt like everything else, part of my life was about a new journey. And I'd lived in Melbourne years before. It felt like when I came here, it very much felt like I moved back home. And Melbourne's been lovely. We've had some great gigs since we've started here. But I left a full band behind in Adelaide. And so it's been a case of putting together another band before I can start gigging here in Melbourne. So we now have done that, and we've been rehearsing it, and everyone's sounding great. And we're pretty much, once this album is launched, the goal is just to start gigging around Melbourne and having fun with it.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. I can't wait to have it out there. And have you played an album launch as such yet?
Well, ironically, the last album. Oh, do you mean for this album or another album launch?
No, just for this album in particular. I know it comes out.
This is it.
Now. Yep, this is the first
album.
Beautiful.
Yeah. We're all old and tired, and there's so much going on. We were going to go to Adelaide and launch it there, but then there was just confusion with the dates, and they've got this big thing. So I booked to go to the Weedy in Adelaide, which is a great venue, which is where I launched my band to begin with. But there was so we booked it, all set to go. Tasha Coates was going to support me. She's the co-producer on the album. And that would have been a really great gig. But then they just accidentally booked me on the date that they had Thebatonia on. And Thebatonia is probably their biggest gig for the whole year. It's a big festival for Adelaide, for Theberton, which is where the Weedy is. Initially, I was a bit like, oh, but once I realised it was Thebertonia, I'm like, oh, I get it. It's like, it's huge. So, and they were offering other dates, and we couldn't do it just because of circumstance. And I contacted a few other venues, and we were given other dates, which was lovely and very, very quick, but they just had to be on that particular date. So we've ended up cancelling the South Australian launch, and we're just launching it at the retreat on Saturday. And then once that's done, I think we're just going to go on an adventure and to start booking it. We will go back to South Australia at some stage and play it because we should. But I think we're all kind of feeling a bit relieved that we don't have to anymore.
I bet the enjoyment that comes from this now, you didn't go by halves and put together a little 3-piece. You went all out and got a 6-piece, which makes it incredibly difficult to get out and about and travel and make sure everyone available. So
I've made it myself.
two is the next challenge in amongst what you've got here. But that's an exciting thing.
We'll see how we go.
To be able to gig an album, most importantly, and that's what everyone wants, a new song or a new album. And you've been lucky enough, finally, well, not lucky enough, you bring your own destiny in this case, because being self-funded isn't an easy part of the process. There's a lot of grants out there, but they seem to fall few and far between in the cracks of some people. So the recording process, just tell us quickly just a little bit about the length of time that took to put together, how many what's the overall how many sessions and how did it work?
Man. It was, I lost count. I went in, there's a Facebook post of me going, woohoo, going into the studio first day. And I think that was in like October 2019. And it was from that point onwards, right up until I left, which was in June 2022 or something. And then we've been mastering it and mixing it in between. So I recorded the studio the song in 3 batches. So I'd focus on the first 3 songs, which were This Love Woman, Love Song, and Don't Die Young were the first 3. Then when we got them pretty much done, we moved on to the next, and I can't remember what they were. And then the final lot. And it was constant. And the thing, because that was what would happen, you'd go in there and you'd be like, oh, this sounds really lovely, guitar and bass and drums, it's really pretty. But wouldn't it be lovely if it sounded, what would it sound like if we had a cello in there? What would it sound like with keys? What it would sound like if we had an amazing guitar and do different kinds of guitar, and it just kept on building. And then we'd bring people in, and then when we weren't recording, we were thinking about the next lot of songs. We're going, okay, well, what are we doing with the next lot? We start looking at the arrangements, trying to work out whether we're happy with what we're doing, make sure we're practicing them, gigging them. And then organising who's going to play on them. And it was this constant sort of go, go, go. And then we'd go into the studio and we'd get, you always go in the studio expecting to get as much as you could done, but you can only do as much as you can do. And, sometimes lying to myself was the vocals I found the hardest to do. And I think we tried it 3 different times at different places. And eventually we ended up just... Nick, the engineer, who I have to talk about, basically went to my house in Mile End in Theberton and set up the studio in my bedroom because it was the best acoustics, and we did it in my bedroom. It was so much better. But I listened to people and they go, oh, we went in the studio and we recorded the album and it took us 4 days. And I that's so alien to me. I don't know how people do it. But if it wasn't right, we wouldn't leave it like that, and we just kept on. So Nick Swerdloff. So basically, the production team was Tasha Coates from the Audreys and myself. She's a good mate of mine, and she was very much the one that really encouraged me to do the album in the first place. Yeah, absolutely. And she used to say to me, "Oh, I'll produce your album if you do an album." And I would think it was just, pub talk because we were sitting around just rabbiting on about stuff. And a few times she actually offered to do that, and I honestly did not take her seriously. I thought she was joking or just being silly. Then a friend of mine, Courtney Robb, when I eventually decided to actually do the album, I was talking to Courtney and saying, I really do need a producer. I really probably should get a producer. And she's like, Wren, I've been in the room when Tasha's offered and you just completely don't acknowledge it. And so I'm like, so Tasha just came on board and she very much structured it for me because I really had no idea what I was doing, and she's had like, she's multiple ARIA winner and she's got numerous records and we were friends we were friends, not music friends. So it was a nice experience to actually start becoming music friends. So we started the journey together very, very much. Then we got into the studio and I met Nick for the first time. So Nick Swerdloff is the engineer on this album. And Nick and I have become extremely close. In all honesty, this is as much his baby as it is mine. Like, I think we are co-parents on this album because he just fell in love with it. From day dot, he was obsessed with it. He credits this to be his finest work. And he went from charging me to doing endless unpaid hours. I have no idea at what point he stopped. He just did he fell into this album and he was obsessed by it and we were both obsessed by it, and we'd just be like, what about this idea? What about that idea? And being with him in the studio was probably one of the best experiences of my life because we were like two excited parents waiting to hear what the sound would be like. And, we'd hear someone would come in, they'd start doing something. We'd be looking at each other like little kids. It was so gorgeous. And we are solid. He's coming over from Adelaide for the launch, which is really exciting. I hope he's bringing his sax because he actually plays sax and he played it on the album. And he sings on the album too. Wow. But this is a labor of love from Nick, and I feel like I'm so incredibly grateful to have someone like him take it on board like he did. It's not usual. You don't get that lucky, to be honest. I got very lucky. And I also got I know I didn't pay for a lot of studio hours, or I probably should have. But he definitely didn't charge me.
You might call it luck. I'd say sometimes good things are gifted to you for a reason, Wren. And in this case, this beautiful album is what's come out of it. And it's going to be really exciting to be able to share that with the rest of the world, starting this Saturday. Here it is. We'll just give it one more plug. Saturday afternoon, 17th of August at the Retreat Hotel. Special guest Nathan Seeckts opening up. 2:30 for the doors. Please get there. As I mentioned at the start of the podcast, get down, have a counter meal, support a great venue. Venues need you right now. In amongst musicians need you as well. But get down there and get your hard-earned cash out. I beg you for 1 week to come support Wren Bellette and pre-order an album. You're obviously gonna have albums ready to roll for the night.
Yeah, we do. And talking about people, like about 3 weeks ago, I pretty much told the band, I'm like, guys, I've run out of cash. I can't do vinyl. It's not happening. And then Hugh, that you met, and Nick, they just out of nowhere basically were like, well, how much does it cost to do vinyl? And I'm like, oh, more than I've got. And they both were like, well, we'll do it for you. So they pretty much just coughed up on the spot. And I was quite blown away. And I also thought, we've got 3 weeks to get vinyl done. There's no way it's going to happen. And rang around everywhere the next day. And nowhere could do it. They're like, we need 6 to 8 weeks to do it. And got hold of Scott at Replicat, who just was like, have you got the artwork ready? Have you got this? Have you got that? Okay, 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. I need you to ring up. I need you to have everything ready, and I can probably get it to you, get it to them at like 10 a.m. So I actually didn't even sleep that night. I was so anxious about it. And they did it, and they did it early, and it's here in my hands, and it's incredible. So Nick and Hugh made this happen. So it really is I'm just so grateful for these two, because it just would have been a thing that just an album that just exists in the universe, but now it's a real thing.
Beautiful. Well, if Hugh is still there, sitting in the
Yes,
background,
thank
please,
you.
please come and grab a chair again, Hugh, and we'll finish. We'll just to say a quick thank you.
Yep.
Hugh, you obviously saw something beautiful in amongst this album, and made it a little something that you could do and give in respect of, putting together some hard-earned cash. Let's face it, into the pot here, believing in this album, believing in Wren.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about why this was so important to you to get Wren's dream of the first vinyl, first album ready to go and in its entirety ready for this launch.
I've really enjoyed this joining this band and learning a new style of music, and I think Wren is a great songwriter. They're powerful songs. They're big songs. It's a big story. It's a story that I think a lot of people can relate to. That story of heartbreak and someone that you love and you rely on lets you down or it doesn't work out.
Yep.
It's a story a lot of people know, and I think you tell it in a really powerful way. And it's like you approach it in these just different angles. I mean, there's a theme, and I didn't know Wren that well when I joined the band, but after 2 practices and I'd heard these songs, I thought I kind of knew this. I knew her story. I knew a whole lot about her, and that goes to the songwriting, I think, and the way the music sits so well with the lyrics, and they're powerful lyrics and they're interesting melodies and they're interesting progressions, and I just found it really engaging.
Beautiful.
And, yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, I think artists are so important. I really do. Really, more and more, we all know there's terrible things happening in the world, and there's all kind of madness out there. And
yeah, absolutely.
Artists help us connect with our experience and help us understand our own experience. And it was all of those things, yeah.
Well, it sounds like there's some beautiful wisdom, and I mentioned chemistry before. You could feel it and see it straight away when you two played together. And
great.
I cannot wait.
Great.
Honestly, cannot wait to see the rest of the band in amongst
Yeah,
this.
Yeah.
Who would have thought four more incredible artists are going to take the stage? With you guys, and you're lucky enough to call them your band, Wren, which is you've got to have someone out front. But it sounds like we've got the right person in space. Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I just want to finally touch on, just give me one word of wisdom, Wren, for an artist kind of coming through and cutting their teeth in this hard world that is music. You've been around for a while in music. This will go to you too as well, Hugh. And yeah, there must be something you can just kind of tell an artist now to just either hang in there and keep pushing, or belief in yourself, or what's give me something that resonates with you with no notice, obviously, that I'm giving you.
No, it's good. Timing's really your timing for this question is very appropriate. I think that even I've been struggling just with everything in the last couple of months, with bringing out an album and all the social media stuff and all the promo and all the self-doubt and like pegging yourself to other people and trying to work out where you sit, and realizing that honestly the most important thing that you need to do is just be true to yourself. Write the music that you want to write, do the art that you want to do. Don't look at what other people are up to do. Don't compare yourself to other people. And I think if you're not authentic about what you're doing, you're not going to be able to sustain this, because it's such a difficult industry, and it's a particularly difficult industry now where pretty much you're doing all of it. So if you're not really sincere about what you're doing, you're not. It's not going to be able. You can't sustain that. So be true to yourself.
Absolutely. And how do you top that? Hugh, what can you give me from a musician's point of view into a band, just getting to know the whole band?
I find playing music and listening to music so sustaining. Just it feeds me.
Yeah.
And there's the thing that always resonates is that authenticity. You know it when you hear it.
Yeah.
And we're lucky we live in a city with a lot of really authentic musicians who love their art and are good at it. And yeah, yeah.
Yep.
That's
Well,
what I reckon.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
thank you guys enough for an hour of your time.
Thank you.
We never put a time frame on this, but I could talk to you guys for at least half an hour, at least more. But there's so much more to
It's been
give.
fun.
Most importantly, I want to wish you well for this Saturday afternoon. This is the start of a massive journey for you guys. And once again, just on behalf of everyone that'll either see the show, listen to the album, you're 100% right, Hugh. What you spoke about was people feel and know authenticity. And what I do from the bottom of my heart is I get to a lot of gigs, probably 150 odd gigs a year I try and see, which is a lot. Now, in amongst that, it's a great support for music. But to me, the magic that you guys bring to transform someone like us to another place for an hour in a gig is a moment that I'll never forget. So I'm looking forward to adding this one to the list. It won't.
I love hearing it, Darren. Thank you.
Yeah, it's so nice.
My first time seeing you guys, it guarantee it won't be my last. So I urge everyone to try and get there on Saturday afternoon. We'll put some details in the bottom of this. This little podcast will sit in the world out there for people to absorb over time. So it won't be this. Just keep in mind, this was just before the launch, a few days out. So we wish you well tomorrow night in a little band practice, getting things ready. Right. Probably the last rehearsal before you get out there. So it's going to be a special time on Saturday. Wishing you all the best, and long may this album continue into the future.
Oh, thank you so much, Aaron. You've been wonderful. I really appreciate it. It's just been such a great interview. Thank you again for all the support. Right. It's amazing.
Thanks for joining us.
And just a quick shout out
to Chris Familton, who's doing some incredible job publicity, connecting me to bands and like yourself. When he touched base with me and said, "Would you like to interview Wren?" I said, "Absolutely." With a name like Wren, how could you not? It's a special name that I hadn't heard before. I couldn't wait to talk to you. So thanks again, guys. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Cheers.
See you on Saturday.
See you Saturday.
Yeah. Bye.
Cheers.
How good was that to have a chat to Wren Bellette and Hugh Beffarage? I hope I got that right. I think I made a meal of it at the end there for Hugh. But some two beautiful artists. There was
some magic in that room. Two beautiful songs,
and an album you won't forget once you get out and see this. So we're going to leave the screen up with the launch for Saturday afternoon. Please get out there. If you can't get to this gig, there's plenty of other gigs on, but I urge you to get to the retreat on the weekend and support, most importantly, original, local, beautiful music. So congratulations, Wren, on the launch of this album. It's a special moment you won't forget, I guarantee. We'll talk about this one for years. So all the best. Get out there and enjoy. See you soon.